This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi, my name is Colleen Lahey, and I'm an addict in recovery. The show is exposing the empty chair, exposing addiction, and it's a very, very important show. It means a lot to me. The empty chair represents an addict who didn't find their way into the rooms of recovery, who's not here anymore. And that's lucky for me. Thank God that that's not my story today, because I did manage to get my life together and get clean, and I'm able to sit here and tell people, like, you know, how I did that, what my life is like, and also, you know, what the impact recovery's had on my family, and this is part of my family right here. This is my dad, Phil, and I'm fortunate. I have two moms. This is my second mom, Fran, and they're gonna tell you like their side of it. They had a front row seat basically for my years of active addiction, like what it was like when I first started. They went through everything with me. They saw everything, they felt everything, and they went through it. And you know, I was numbed by drugs through the whole thing, but they weren't. They faced everything like head on, and it's, you know, because of them and you know, other people in my life, you know, like my recovery friends and stuff like that. But if it wasn't for, like, you know, these two people, I probably wouldn't be alive today. So it's very, very important to hear like their side, what they went through, and what their life is like now. So I don't know. I guess I'll start with Fran. And we're having this show just because, you know, we were going to have Jennifer Burns from the More Group. She was going to come and share this show, but there was, I guess, some people that called and they wanted to hear like the family side of it. So we're going to have Jennifer Burns next month, but I think this month it's important to hear the family side. Just so if you're out there and maybe you're going through this, so you won't feel alone, maybe you can identify with what they have to say, because it is very, very important. It's important to hear the addict side, but it's kind of even more important to hear the family side, because like I said, they're going through all of this, you know, not on anything. They're just feeling everything, you know, head on, which I can't even imagine. So Fran, I guess we'll just start with you. Mm-hmm. When did you start to notice, you know, things were not right, or like your first memory of like when, you know, you were starting to notice that things like weren't going the way they should, like when there was trouble kind of brewing?
Well, when I first started dating your dad, you were about 17. So you had already started taking some kind of drugs, maybe not heroin at that time. But so when I first met you, you were, you know, maybe drinking or using pot or, you know, doing some stuff. But I guess I started to notice things were not right away. But it was probably a year or two later that I felt that, you know, something was wrong. You were losing a lot of weight, and then there are a lot of crazy stories you were coming up with and things that just didn't make sense. And so I started to become a little suspicious. And then I remember the first time we found out that you were actually a heroin addict. I remember the night. I remember exactly what that was like. And for me, it was almost like it was surreal. I just I couldn't really grasp it. It was just devastating, practically, to the point where, like I say, I almost didn't even feel anything. I was numb. So your dad and we, you know, talked about it and decided, okay, this is what we've got to do. We've got to help her. We've got to, you know, help pay her bills. We've got to get her on the straight and narrow, and, you know, and so we started that whole process. And it's a whole process where you begin to feel like you have to help your loved one, and you're going to make all these changes, and you're going to make her better, and, you know, and then you begin to realize that it doesn't work that way. You have to want to get better yourself. So,
and do you remember how you found out? Do you remember who?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. I think you were working at
Papa Gino's.
yeah, a pizza place.
Yeah.
And you know, it's almost comical. That's the day I found out you were a heroin addict, and I found out you were actually smoking cigarettes.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know you
I
were
remember.
doing.
Yep.
You do? You remember
Yeah,
that?
I remember.
And you know, and like Fran said, you know.
Did you believe it right away, or was there some denial, like
Well,
on both of your parts?
you know, it's not that I didn't believe it. It's just that, you know, it was an eye opener, because my idea of someone who does heroin, number one, I thought heroin was a very expensive drug, and I thought we weren't the type of people that raised kids to do heroin. I think, you know, my complete lack of knowledge about everything pertaining to that, and I guess, you know, because I'm your dad, and I actually thought we could fix it, you know, and I had the guilt and the shame and the fear, and, you know, all these emotions. You know, I think you could put it on the same kind of comparisons. If somebody dies in your family, or if you get divorced or something, you have that grief right from the get-go, and you're trying to determine what you did wrong that made you sink to that depth.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, did you immediately want to start, like, blaming, you know, maybe other people that were in my life, or...
Oh, yeah, the roommate you had at that time, you know, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why Colleen's doing drugs. She'd been hanging around with this one here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did the blame game.
You did. Yeah, you had to go through all of those feelings, which I didn't go through that, because I'm not your biological mother. And if I were, believe me, I would have been right there with you. And for me, it was a little bit different. My thing was, I can help you by talking to you, and you know, and we got so wrapped up in trying to keep you, you know, straight and be supportive and work with you, and you know, making contracts, and you know, you came to live with us, and we were going to just fix this whole problem. And then before we knew it, you know, your life was spinning out of control. Our life was out of control. Yeah. We were obsessed with trying to catch you in a lie. I mean, I can remember being so obsessed and crazy in this whole thing that we'd call the gym and see, did she really go to the gym? Did she really pay the gym? No, she didn't. And like it was crazy. Like, what were we going to find out if you did lie? Yeah, you lie. Right. Addicts lie. You know, they steal, they cheat, they manipulate. All those things were going on. I mean, for me, I ended up being afraid. You know, I was afraid in my own home. I didn't feel safe. We would lock our bedroom door. We bought a safe to keep things, you know, from being stolen, and tried to hide the safe so you wouldn't see it. And I would be up all night because I'd hear you awake and walking around, and I'd think, okay, what's she gonna do now? What's she thinking? She's looking through something. She's gonna take something. I mean, I was like crazy with it. And I would say things like, you know, bottles of Excedrin or aspirin PM or whatever it was would disappear.
Yep,
and then and I'd say to you, like, she's taking, you know, PM stuff. I don't think that's good if you're an addict, you know. And you'd be, oh, she's fine. And, you know, kind of not in denial that you were using, but in denial that things were okay. Well, they weren't really okay. Things were really spinning out of control for you.
Yeah.
And we were so wrapped up in trying to keep that, that we got sick too. You know,
Right.
I think mentally we were just as sick as you with trying to help you, trying to fix it, that we didn't know yet that we couldn't fix it. We didn't know that you had to be the one to fix it.
Right.
So, you know, I finally reached a point. I mean, our relationship, our marriage was really, you know, affected.
Yeah.
And I finally reached a point where I said, I can't live like this anymore. I was violated years ago a few times when I lived alone with my children, and they were small, and I had been broken into several times. So knowing that I'm living with someone that's stealing from me and trying to protect all of my belongings, I couldn't protect them, and
just-
so I just couldn't do it anymore.
And, you know, just because Fran went through that whole thing in such a short time, just so everybody knows, that period was like 2 years.
Oh yeah,
You know,
it was
this
a
was
long
a
time.
this was a 2-year period before Fran
got
was
to that- I
finally
got
able
to
to
that point,
convince me.
yeah.
And I can remember the last straw. You came home. You came home on a bike that had 2 flat tires.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I remember that. Yep, I sure do.
And you came in the house.
It seemed like such a good idea at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bet it-
It seemed
Well,
like
when
such
you're
a good idea.
when you're driven
Yeah.
by that
Oh,
need to get your drugs,
Well, it had to
it
be-
was a
Nothing
good
would get in
idea.
the way.
It had to
Nothing.
be about 11 or 12 o'clock at night.
Later, I think.
Yeah,
Later.
and
Oh yeah,
comes-
it was late.
Yeah,
yeah,
middle of
1
the night.
o'clock or
What-
2
yeah.
o'clock in the morning or
Yeah.
something like that.
comes into the house, and you know I got to do the. Well, the next I didn't realize it at the time, but she proceeded to go downstairs and take.
Steal
At that time, there was my prized
PlayStation.
possession,
PlayStation.
PlayStation. I had hips replacement surgery, so the kids bought me a PlayStation to play golf on the PlayStation, and that's how I did a lot of my recouping.
Yep.
So I didn't notice her. She's so quick at taking things back.
You had the backpack on
Yeah.
your bag, never took it
And-
off. It was just boom, gone.
And
Yep.
then she says she's going back to where she was staying. And I goes out and I sees this bike that she was on.
Again,
It's
seemed
funny.
like a really good
It's
idea
funny
at the
now
time.
when you think about
It
it,
is.
but at the time.
So what I did was I said, I'm going to give her a ride. I'll give you a ride, you know, and just like, and when she told me we should, I says, you know, then, you know, that you can't come back. And so, well, when I got home is when I found out the PlayStation was gone. So I saw her the next day, and, you know, again, that was like the last straw for me. And I says, look, you have to leave. I'll take you to Holy Family if you want to go there and detox out, or you just get out. And
Because it was either me or you
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you know, I couldn't do it anymore. And I felt bad, but I just couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't working.
she said, okay, take me to your mom's house. And I did. I can't even tell you after I dropped her off, because when I dropped her off, I says, you know, why don't you let me go to take her to hut? And she says, no. Says, I got a plan. I'm going to be fine. I know what I'm going to do. Well, the way she said it sent chills through my whole body.
Yeah.
So I came home and I talked to Fran, and she said, well, maybe drive around, see if you can. Well, I drove around looking for her. I couldn't find her. And it was later on that day that I got a call that said, you OD'd.
Yeah.
And that was her plan.
That was probably one of the worst days of our
Yeah.
life. Well, I know
In-
mine, and I'm
intentionally,
sure it was
I had
yours.
made that was my big plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that I couldn't live life like that anymore, so I tried to kill myself.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
what my disease brought me, and you
Yeah.
knew that, and that's
Yeah,
why
he
you
did.
Yep. And,
you got
Yeah.
that feeling.
and I can tell you right now, it's something I had thought about happening, and I'm almost ashamed to say this, but unless you've been through it with an addict, you don't know what they can put you through. And
What were some of the different plans that you guys had to try? Because I'm sure, like when you found out, and then you go through all the stages
Yeah.
of like blaming and anger and,
Yeah.
and the fear, and then just being totally consumed by it
Yep.
and the anxiety, and then it's like trying like, okay, well, how can we fix this?
And-
what were some of the things that you thought could?
well, I mean, as far as I mean,
We started
used to
off
let-
thinking we could fix
Yeah,
it,
we'd
but
let you
then
go
we
to the
realized
detoxes
it wasn't
and,
happening.
and
Yeah.
that. But the point I wanted to make was, when we got that call that you OD'd, and for any parent, their worst nightmare when they know their kids are, and understand something. We've been going through this for 2 or 3 years, and it's not a life I would wish on anybody.
No.
For a split second, when they said she OD'd, I'm saying, geez, maybe it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for a split second.
Yeah.
I was ready to take the easy way out too, because your problem would be gone.
Yeah.
My heart would be broken, but I wouldn't be worried about you anymore.
Yeah.
It only lasted a split second, thank God. But for people who are listening out there and have the fear of losing a child, enabling them, doing all the things Fran and I did is not going
Not
to
the
help
answer.
them.
No. And that's one of the things we want to try to stress too, is that this disease isn't just a disease for the addict, it's a disease for the family.
Absolutely.
It is so devastating that to watch, your child or your husband or whatever, your loved one, and see how they just change. I mean, I never even got to know you, the real Colleen. And watching Phil, and it was different because, like I say, I was, I came on board later, but I was trying to keep it real, and I would point things out, and and all that. But it was very difficult. That day was probably the worst day of my life, and I even got into an accident. It was horrible. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
But I got into an accident that day in the middle of Lawrence somewhere. I don't even know where I was in Lawrence, but we just look at it now and we see that the whole thing is a process. When you first find out what you try to do to help the person, and you want to take care of them, and you want to make them better, and you want to do all the right things and be there and be supportive and all that, and then you become so sucked into it that you don't even realize you're enabling, because you are enabling because you love this person, and that doesn't work because they're still not ready. You still didn't want to change. You still weren't ready to be, to give it up. And then you get angry when you get, violated by stealing, and you get angry when you're being lied to and manipulated, and you go through all this whole, this whole group of feelings, and then finally you say, there's nothing we can do. Yeah. And we luckily got involved in a group, a support group for families of addicts. And, that was the best thing for us. But
it was. What
I want to say, as far as you and I mean, we've had some tough times through the years.
Definitely.
And now that you've gone through the program, you've gone through detox, the whole thing. And I mean, I just want to say that I admire you probably more than any other woman that I know.
Wow.
After what you've been through and how well you've done and how hard you worked, because I know it's very, very difficult. And people, family members don't realize that. They just say, stop it, just don't do it, And we've learned that it's not that easy. It's especially heroin. It's very, very addictive. And
because the addict has to want it. And you said that. You guys have said that a couple of times. Like if the addict doesn't, if they're not ready, if they don't want it, all the addicts need it.
Yeah.
We all needed it, but there's only certain ones who actually want it, who are ready. And if people are watching it, and there's addicts out there, and it's like, and there's families, and they have loved ones that aren't ready, and they don't want it yet. It comes to another really hard, painful thing that I admire you guys for, and I am extremely grateful for. I couldn't say that then, but I can say it now, and that's the detachment, to be able to detach so that, you guys, your life wasn't put on hold anymore, and that had to be the absolute hardest thing.
I can't think
the
of
hardest thing to do, because it maybe, and we were talking about it outside, maybe people would think oh, well, out of sight, out of mind, I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm sure it's
not
just
like
the opposite, because now you don't have your eyes on me, you don't know my every move, you have to basically keep yourself safe and love me from a
and
distance,
the guilt,
and that had to be...
the guilt you feel.
Oh, my God.
The guilt was horrendous, especially that day, because I thought, oh my God, she's gonna, what if she dies? And I was the one that said, I can't do this anymore. Either she has to go or I can't be in this marriage anymore. And I was blaming myself if anything would happen. And it was, you dying inside because you knew that you were so afraid you had to do this. You were kind of in the middle and, caught in between trying to please your wife and your daughter. And, it was horrendous. Families are...
Yeah. And another very important thing I want to get out to families, I want you to know that, Colleen started her recovery then. It was the beginning, but it was a long process.
Yeah.
And Fran mentioned we belong to a support group, well, Colleen went on a long-term, 15 months?
Yeah,
15 months of being clean and sober. And
in a program, I committed
Yeah.
to treatment, went
Right.
to detox, and then went
Yeah.
to treatment
And-
facility.
Fran and me too, we said, well, it's over, well, thank God for the support group that I belong to. Thank God for Joe Cotton from the late Joe
Psychological
Cotton from the
Center.
Psychological Center. He's the one that taught us that relapse is part of recovery. And it's not something any parent wants to hear, especially when you have someone. Well, we learned about relapse, and because you had a PIP there.
Yeah.
And because of the people that were surrounding Fran and I, with the support group that we had, and don't think it was easy, but they got us through it. You're with
Didn't
people
feel
who
so
understood.
alone anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anybody who thinks, out of sight, no, when you detach, when the family detaches, I mean, we were lucky. She tried to get, but a lot of times you're going to throw your kid out and they're just going to go out in the street, find somebody else to, it's hard. And just like you said, when out of sight, out of mind, no.
Yeah.
You worry, you have fears, the phone call.
Yeah.
But by throwing her out didn't guarantee she was going to get clean. But if I didn't throw her out, it would guarantee she would never get clean.
Yeah. It was definitely something that you had to do because, I mean, we've talked about this a million times. Like, every addict has to hit a
Rock
bottom. If
bottom.
there's always somebody there putting a pillow under their behind, they're not going to hit their bottom.
Yeah.
If there's always somebody there that's going to be like, well, I'll take you in, and I'm trying to lie and manipulate you, and it's not working. So now I'm going to go to Fran, and I'm going to try and run my game on her. And when that stopped working, I would go to my mom, and then I would be saying different lies to you and to you. I'd throw my brother into the mix. I'd throw my mom into the mix, and I'd keep trying to work like this game of just constant manipulation and lies, and until all these people are just like, until the game is over, and there's no more hustle to spread around, then you're gonna hit your bottom and maybe start to think like, well, maybe I should start. Maybe it's me. Like, maybe I need to start changing because all these people, I'm burning all my bridges,
Yeah.
and I'm starting to feel alone. And it's so important that you guys, you were in that group.
Yeah.
And you're not feeling like alone anymore. And that's why this show is so important. So maybe people can watch it and say, oh my God, like, here's a family that is going through that too. Like, my kid was lying to this one, and we have to check up, and we're calling the gym to see if they really pay, are they really paying their car
Yeah,
thing?
just
Because that's
crazy
how it
stuff.
is. Like,
Yeah.
that's what happens. You turn into like a different person, I don't know, you do turn into a different person, and it's like, and hearing all this stuff about things that like I did to you when I was using, and I don't, I was using, I can easily blame it on that, but it's like, but I did it. Those are choices that I made, and these are consequences of my actions to hear all the stuff that I did to you guys, and because I'm in my 12-step program, like, one of the steps is step 8 is making amends to people that you've hurt in active addiction. And like, I just want to like make amends to you guys for like everything that like I did to you, because it's not right. Like, it's not right, everything that I did. And like, I'm really sorry. And like, the best amends that I can make is to stay clean every day and to not repeat those behaviors anymore, because you guys don't deserve that, and my mom doesn't deserve it, and Fran and you and my brother and just my whole family, Thank God I didn't die that day,
Thank God is right. It could have been a different story,
It could have been really different.
We were very lucky that you got the help, and like I say, I admire your strength, because it took a lot of strength for you to do that and to continue with the program and go through it. And now I know the real Colleen, because I didn't know the real Colleen before.
No, for a long time. I was gone.
Like what I see a lot.
Thank you. It's not easy. Like, this is not easy, but it can be done. If you're out there watching this, like, it can be done. It's not easy, but it's definitely possible with some work.
Absolutely.
Using drugs and dealing with all this stuff is it's hard, but like, this is hard too, but it's worth it. And before we close the show, Fran's got something that that she's going to read. And next month, we're going to have Jennifer Burns. She's one of my really good friends from the Moore Group, and she's going to talk about treatment and advocating for addicts and recovery. And Fran's got something that she's going to read about, you know.
And this will close our show for
Yeah.
tonight.
This
Fran?
is something that Phil found online. It's titled What Addicts Do. My name is John. I'm an addict, and this is what addicts do. You cannot or will not change my behavior. You cannot make me treat you better, let alone with any respect. All I care about, all I think about, is my needs and how to go about filling them. You are a tool to me, something to use. When I say I love you, I am lying through my teeth, because love is impossible for someone in active addiction. I wouldn't be using if I loved myself, and since I don't, I cannot love you. My feelings are so pushed down and numbed by my drugs that I could be considered a sociopath. I have no empathy for you or anyone else. It doesn't faze me that I hurt you, leave you hungry, lie to you, cheat on you, and steal from you. My behavior cannot and will not change until I make a decision to stop using and then follow up with a plan of action. And until I make that decision, I will hurt you again and again and again. Stop being surprised. I am an addict, and that's what addicts do.
Okay, so thanks for watching, and we hope you continue to watch, because this is a very important show. This is life and death stuff, and it's real. We don't plan, you know, that's the first time we've actually, you know, planned something to read, but other than that, it's all real stuff. Like, we don't plan, like, anything. We just kind of speak from the heart, and whatever is said is meant to be said. So thank you for watching, and thank you, Dad, and thank you, Fran.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank you.